if you said the current all assets in the world currently equal about $900 trillion. Underneath those assets is about $600 trillion of debt. If you include all of the liabilities and unfunded liabilities, but 600 trillion. And so if that debt went insolvent, all of those assets are worthless, right? Because everything would collapse.
Jeff Booth drops a powerful truth. The world's $900 trillion in assets rest on a collapsing $600 trillion debt pile. Governments won't let it fail. They'll keep printing and inflating to avoid chaos, but this only deepens control and centralization. Bitcoin offers an escape. It's outside the system, decentralized, secure, and bounded by energy, making it immune to manipulation. Booth argues that if Bitcoin stays intact, it could reprice global assets over time. And it's happening. BlackRock, Fidelity, and other institutions are investing billions in Bitcoin. Countries like Argentina are eyeing it as a lifeline. Booth's idea of Bitcoin gaining infinite purchasing power suddenly feels less radical and more realistic. If you're finding value here, like the video, share it, and subscribe for more sharp insights into Bitcoin and the future of finance. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
So people are measuring their assets within a system that debt is already insolvent, and they're pretending that debt is solvent. That debt requires more and more manipulation of money forever, exponentially more manipulation of money, so that the assets don't collapse and everything within that system doesn't collapse. So we're at the almost end of days. It could go on a bunch longer, but that system is getting more and more centralized, more and more controlled, and because it has to. We'll go into that afterwards. But every single asset, so instead of thinking 900 trillion of assets, think my house within that, this building within that. Well, if that debt went insolvent, this place would be worth nothing, like nothing, right? So there would be complete chaos. And so what does that say to you? It says, it won't go insolvent in that way, because you wouldn't let it. If a government allowed the debt to completely collapse and everything to collapse and it to be anarchy in that way, every last man for himself, you would, before that happened, vote for more centralization and control. You wouldn't let the bank fail. So when I say it's going to collapse to zero, it won't collapse to zero. And instead, there will be liquidation, more and more manipulation of money. So from Bitcoin's perspective, if you just said, you have an open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy. And that's my kind of 5 criteria on what this is. So that system bounded by energy, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, the only thing that would change this is if somehow Bitcoin broke and wasn't decentralized and secure. But that system bounded by energy will reprice all $900 trillion of assets. All. It's not, Bitcoin isn't within the system, it's outside the system, bounded by energy. There's a really important differentiation. You know this, many Bitcoiners know this, but many Bitcoiners know it, and at the same time, they're pricing it as an asset within the system. Okay, so it's outside. If you hold it in self-custody, if it stays decentralized and secure, bounded by energy, it is repricing that entire system over time. So what does that mean? So you take that 900 trillion today of purchasing power, not 900 trillion of paper money, of purchasing power, and you divide it by 21 million. Or if you said that how many lost coins, you divide it by a smaller number. But let's say that number equals 43 million. Approximately 43 million of purchasing power in today's currency of Bitcoin. But what would happen from that system? From that system, you're living in the first global free market that has ever existed. And from that system, prices fall every year. Prices, as we automate, as AI moves faster and faster, as AI merges with robotics, as the free market adds more people to the free market, and those ideas compete to provide us value, prices fall forever relative to that 43 million. So that 43 million gains more and more value forever. So if you had a small percentage of a Bitcoin in time, that would be enough to live forever. And it's just, all we're talking about is the timing of when that happens, rather than does that happen.
It's very difficult. You're the one that actually told me this. It's very difficult to imagine that system within the existing system.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It isn't in the system. In other words, you have to use first principles and then ask what will happen because of that? What will happen because of that? What will happen because of that? Because when I think about this, I think about all of our mental lattice, all of our books, every single other thing we've ever written is within the system. We've always lived in a control system. It has never been a global free market. We've always co-opted money. When people say gold is actually the store of value, it hasn't. It's failed many times. It gets repriced, it gets centralized. If gold was actually the price that the free market says it is, it should be about $80,000 an ounce. So it's suppressed through derivative instruments. It's suppressed. Nobody knows how much gold each central bank has, and you have a paper currency on top. That gold isn't audited every 10 minutes. So we pretend it acted like a store of value because it acted like a better store of value than other stores of values.
Yeah.
But we don't have a mental model for what a real store of value, or not a store of value, a real network protocol bounded by energy looks like, because all of the stuff is in our mind is in this other system.
What's stopping Bitcoin from not following in the footsteps of gold in terms of it potentially being captured? And I'll give a little bit of context. We have 3% of the supply apparently owned by MicroStrategy. The vast majority of the ETFs are custodying their Bitcoin with Coinbase. It's a tremendous amount of trust, right? And just one institution really that's custodying the Bitcoin for all of these institutions, all the these public companies as well. Isn't that exactly what happened to gold?
Exactly, and it's a really good question because of that. And because of that, it should break your mind out of the trap that it's in. It won't for all Bitcoiners, but it will for some, and over time. But I put a bar, at least for me in Bitcoin, how I keep saying over and over and over again, if it stays decentralized and secure. That's my caveat to Bitcoin, repricing the entire system. What would not make it stay decentralized and secure? One of the things is exactly what you talk about. If in over 5,000 years in history, we've always centralized, and we've always believed that inflation is natural and deflation is unnatural, then it's not Bitcoin, it's us that centralizes.
Is it human nature?
It's human nature. It's greed, fear, and fear. In fact, a lot of control mechanisms are created by creating fear in us. That then we give our control, we give our time away through fear because somebody else will protect us, right? And so that's an age-old trick. It's how false flags work. It's how so to be able to create that fear. If I knew everything about Bitcoin and I couldn't stop it every other way, I did social attacks, I did climate, it's bad for the climate, I did all of these things. If I couldn't stop it, what I would do is I would try to co-opt it. If I knew everything that I knew and I was an adversary, I would try to co-opt it. I would say, I'm so for this, we're gonna regulate it to make sure that our country wins on it. And I would get people to trust my centralized coin because it was safe, right?
That sounds very familiar, Jeff.
So all of the actions that we see here, and then what would those people be doing? What those people would be doing over time, many of the Bitcoiners today would make so much money in that centralized system that they wouldn't be Bitcoiners anymore, right? They would be trading their, I've won, they would move over this. They would be moving out of self-custody into the system, trading the system to trade their Bitcoin for a piece of paper. And the Bitcoin would be centralizing as a matter of fact. And it would seem so normal because they were pricing from a fiat system and that fiat system had to drive inflation.
Yeah.
So it had to centralize at a faster and faster rate. But because they would think they were getting rich within that system, it would co-opt them into that system. And I think many, many Bitcoiners are going to do that along the way, and they're going to sell, they'll do okay, everything else, and they won't be Bitcoiners. The question is how many more join and understand what Bitcoin really is for humanity?
Yeah.
How many people keep going? Because most of those people that do that don't run nodes. They're deferring their judgment to somebody else. And the people that run nodes, and more so in time, it'll be economic nodes, and how many transactions, what do those look like on the network? Those are the gatekeepers to Bitcoin. So now let's just keep playing this over. And this is why I talk about this all the time, because the two systems are incompatible. If you're measuring from this fiat system, the price go up, you are part of the centralization. I can't say that any other way. It is a first principle. You are part of centralization, right?
Yeah.
As you really come to understand Bitcoin and you become a node, you become someone at the gate defending this. Sovereign. You become, nobody tells me what to do. You realize that you're one of the people that is protecting all of humanity, moving into a system of hope, truth, and abundance. Most people don't know that. Some will know, some are going to get killed on the way through or destroyed on the way through, but you're moving your time into a system that's a competitive, cooperative, global system. So it's still competitive. The free market is massively competitive. You have to provide value to somebody else on their terms to get paid. But everybody wins by that. And the more people in it, more people win. Because it's, what I'm saying is so unclear to most people, right? They're still measuring Bitcoin by the other system. They're measuring prices in the other system. They're giving more control. Everything they're doing is feeding a narrative, left or right. And everything in that is sucking out more of their power.
And energy.
And time. But they don't know it. So they're like, that's going to continue to happen. But as long as Bitcoin stays decentralized and secure, in other words, those nodes don't accept the control system, what would happen when that control system says, we're changing, it has to be the fiat Bitcoin? It would look like Bcash on steroids.
Yeah.
Right? It would look like 2017 on steroids. And in the first little bit, there would be a lot of people and threats of you have to convert. Right? But as long as those nodes and people and all over the world, and if you think about game theory here, I doubt that system, so that would be hyper Bitcoinization. That system trying to attack Bitcoin, I suspect that system would then be liquidated.
Jeff Booth sees Bitcoin as a peaceful revolution against a broken system. He argues the global financial order, built on debt and control, fears Bitcoin because it exposes a harsh truth. Governments maintain power through money manipulation. If Bitcoin stays decentralized, it pulls back the curtain on this illusion, threatening those in charge. Most people still believe inflation is natural, blaming wars or politics, never realizing it's a result of fiat money and central control. Bitcoin flips that script. It's decentralized, deflationary, and secured by energy, not politics. As more people self-custody and run nodes, they exit the old system and join a truly free global market. Let's hear more from Jeff.
And so where does that come from, and where does that psyop end? And if it's been part of our history for 5,000 years and people believe it, that's why I said they have to ask, or they have to say the natural state of the free market is deflation 1,000 times. And they have to keep saying it. Because when I say that, I didn't say from zero inflation. Somehow politicians and economists get productivity growth mixed up with growth. Productivity growth has faster deflation. And so people talk about this AI, that as we create more AI, we're going to be able to pay back the debt. It's so insane. Yeah. As we create more AI, you have faster deflation, which causes the debt to default, which means you have to create more monetary units, which is exactly what I laid out in my book.
Yeah.
Right? So natural rate of deflation from a free market should be over 5% right now.
Yeah.
Meaning every human being on earth would get richer by 5% a year.
Every single year.
Every single human being in Africa, in South America, every single human being on earth would get rich. That all centralizes, and the puppeteers behind. Now, it's easy to say it's those people. If you had a centralizing force like that, you were at the top of that, you'd spend all your time trying to retain power in that and manipulating time and power. But it's more why I try to keep saying there is no they, because what gives rise to that is us. It's not them, it's us believing that is normal. If you just start with the natural state of the free market is deflation, you have to ask, where does inflation come from? And I'm not talking about inflation from zero. I'm talking from inflation from -5 or -10 or whatever the productivity rate is in the world. Where does inflation come from? It only comes from one thing: manipulation of money.
Yeah.
Only.
Most people think inflation is normal, that prices just rise over time. But Jeff Booth calls that a lie. Inflation is man-made, a symptom of a system built on debt, control, and silent theft of your time and value. Bitcoin offers an escape. It's decentralized, deflationary, and rooted in freedom. It's what a real free market should be. The truth? Most are still trapped in the old system and don't even question it. But if you're watching this, maybe you've started to wake up. If this sparked something, like the video, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more Bitcoin insights. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.